Hey everyone, it's Colin. How's it going? IKEA's been pretty serious about its push into smart home technology, and its Frekvens product line includes its third model of wireless speakers. But is there anything compelling about these beyond their colorful appearance? So IKEA's Frekvens line has a number of products, but among them are three speaker models. A small pocket unit, a bookshelf speaker that can also be portable, and an accompanying subwoofer. It's that bookshelf model we're going to look at this time. It was designed in collaboration with Teenage Engineering, who are probably best known for their line of music synthesizers. In terms of its styling, I can recognize some elements from both companies' design philosophies. Out of the box, it comes with a matte black finish, but includes your choice of yellow or red grills that you can individually swap into place. There's a series of threaded inserts all around the outside, and these are used for attaching the included rubber feet or fabric carrying handle. They can also have mending plates bolted on for connecting other Frekvens devices, like LED lights or that separate subwoofer. The back has some connections that help facilitate that too. At the bottom is the power input, but it also has a pass-through AC power output at the top for daisy chaining devices. The same is true for audio signals. There's an analog audio input, but also an analog output and dedicated jack for connecting the sub. There's only two controls on the unit, the power/pairing button on the back and a rotary encoder on the front for volume. The bottom has a door for the optional lithium-ion battery. That one's advertised as lasting for 6 to 10 hours, depending on use. In addition to analog audio, it also features Bluetooth, but doesn't have any other smart speaker capabilities like the Sonos-based Symfonisk speakers that IKEA also sells. It doesn't even have a microphone for voice commands or speakerphone use. This thing is just for playing music. Behind those grills are a 3-inch woofer and 1-inch soft dome tweeter. The speaker gets reasonably loud, but obviously because of its small size, it's not going to be able to fill very large spaces. Overall, it sounds pretty decent. Bass is tight, though not terribly deep. The mid-range is reasonably smooth with fairly forward vocals, and the highs are crisp, though not exactly articulate. But while I was testing it out, I couldn't help but feel like it was oddly familiar. One thing that caught my attention is that it makes the exact same sounds when powering on and pairing as IKEA's other model of Bluetooth speaker called Eneby. I wondered, is it possible that Frekvens is just Eneby in a different enclosure? Well, there's only one way to find out. Disassembly is straightforward. I started by pulling off the front volume knob, which is friction fit. Interestingly, it's made from blue plastic that's been painted black. Perhaps the designers changed their minds at the last minute? On the back, I pried out these rubber plugs, which are the same ones as used on IKEA's other speaker models. There's 8 of them, but only 6 have screws underneath. The other 2 are there just to keep with the same visual motif as the threaded inserts on the sides. It's just standard Phillips screws holding the back panel on. Then I was able to carefully pry it free with a spudger. 4 cables connect the back panel to the front. This red connector is the output to the speaker drivers, then this pair of cables connects to the volume control and the battery compartment. Last, a single wire goes to a small PCB stuck to the inside of the enclosure. This is the Bluetooth antenna. It connects to the main circuit board using a standard UFL connector. And all of these cables are wrapped with foam tape to keep them from rattling while the speaker is playing. The power supply and main PCB are attached to the back panel, but they're separate boards. The PSU accepts a standard C7 or figure 8 power cable, but that daisy chain output is interesting. It features a panel mount C7 socket for use with a C8 cable, basically opposite how the power input is set up. But this isn't terribly common to see, and the solution for this setup is actually pretty creative. The outer housing for the socket is molded into the back panel, then an ordinary right-angle C7 cable is stuck into it and held down with a metal bracket. The main circuit board is what I was most curious about, and what I found is that while it's not the same as what's used in the NB speaker, it's similar in how it handles audio. Right in the middle of the board is the Bluetooth module, based on an Actions ATS2825 chipset. It's on its own separate PCB, which is soldered to the main board through these castellations on the sides. But it's more than just the chip that handles Bluetooth audio. It's actually responsible for quite a bit. It's pretty much the brains of the entire speaker. It features an analog to digital converter to receive audio from the aux input jack and automatically switches between it and Bluetooth depending on if a cable's plugged in. It also has digital to analog converters for the output jacks too. Audio is always sent to those jacks regardless of the input source, and the volume level varies with the volume of the speaker itself. This is so you can control the volume of all the speakers you hook up from the first one in the chain. Now, from a component perspective, this is a bit different than how the NB speaker does it. On that one, the aux in and Bluetooth signals are routed separately and go through a few more chips. Since the chipset in Frekvens does all that in one module, that simplifies its design and no doubt reduces its build cost. But what remains the same between the two speakers is that the amplifier chip receives a digital signal instead of an analog one. They both perform some EQ and other signal processing right inside the amp, including acting as a crossover for the speaker drivers. Those are directly connected to separate output channels. Curiously though, while NB uses a fairly common amp chip from Texas Instruments, Frekvens uses a Neo-Fidelity NTP7513, which is a bit more obscure. It's manufactured by a South Korean company called Enclosure, and details on it are hard to find. I couldn't dig up a datasheet anywhere, and it's not listed on the company's website, though there are some similar models I was able to glean information from. The best bit of detail I could find was from the service manual of an LG television, which uses the chip to drive its built-in speakers. There's a couple of reasons I can think of as to why IKEA would have gone with this amp chip specifically. First is that perhaps it's pin compatible with similar digital amps from other manufacturers, and it might have just had the best price at the time my particular speaker was manufactured. This kind of part substitution is common in electronics, but it's hard to confirm in this case without a datasheet. In the very least, I know it's not a direct replacement for that Texas Instruments chip, as they have different numbers of pins. The other reason could be due less to engineering and more to business. As best I could tell, this model of chip is discontinued. Considering how hard it was to find information about it, I can only surmise that it wasn't a popular option among device manufacturers. Maybe there was simply excess inventory of these, and they were being sold at a price too good to pass up. The backside of the circuit board is much less interesting. It generally handles power with a Chipstar CS5026E DC to DC converter. It takes the 14-volt input from the power supply or 7 volts from the battery pack and bumps it up to 18 volts to feed the amp chip. There's also a Conconnance CN3702, which is a charge controller for that lithium-ion battery. Finally, the speaker drivers. They're similar to the ones used in both NB and Symfonisk. They're about the same size and design, but they have different part numbers and seem like they're from a different manufacturer. There is one common thing between all of them though, and it's this string of numbers. The numbers themselves are slightly different, but they're in the exact same format. My best guess is that they're either a reference to the product they're meant to be installed in, or there's some kind of internal part number that's used to identify them during manufacturing. And if those drivers look so similar, how does the sound quality compare? Well, let's take a quick listen. Be sure to put on headphones or use good speakers. It seems like IKEA was going for the same sound signature between these two, but in execution, they end up a bit different. Eneby has a fuller, deeper bass response, and a contributing factor to that is its larger enclosure. Yeah, there's probably ways to improve that in Frekvens through DSP, but it's possible IKEA decided not to, as a way to nudge people towards buying that subwoofer. The high end in Frekvens is different too. It's much more crisp than Eneby, but this isn't necessarily a good thing because at times it can get harsh. Side by side, I think Eneby ends up just sounding better. Now overall, while I generally think the sound you do get from Frekvens is decent compared to other Bluetooth speakers, I still can't help but feel a bit disappointed. And that's because of some corner cutting and other missed opportunities. For example, that Bluetooth module has the ability to play media files off of a flash drive, and the circuit board even has the solder pads for a USB port. But the connector was left out of the design, along with the couple of buttons that would be used to control playback. Also, when used as a single speaker, Frekvens plays in mono, as you'd expect. As we saw, it's designed to have additional speakers chained off of it, but there's no way to set these up in a stereo pair. The Bluetooth chip can't pair multiple speakers together, and while the aux output on the back offers a stereo signal, you can't tell the speaker itself to play one channel or another. So all the speakers you hook up are just going to play the same mono signal. Yeah, you could probably work around that with some special splitter cables to send just the left or right signal to each speaker, but then you'd be giving up the convenience of Bluetooth. And at that point, you might as well just buy a normal pair of powered speakers. Also, that subwoofer output is interesting to see, and there's definitely some thought put into it. When the speaker detects a cable in the jack, it applies a high-pass filter to its built-in drivers so the sub can handle the low frequencies. But the sub output has a low-pass filter applied to it that doesn't seem to roll off soon enough. Unfortunately, I don't have one of the Frekvens subs to test with. They were sold out at the store when I went to buy this one. But unless the sub also has some frequency filtering built into it, I suspect the combined sound from the system to be a bit muddier than it otherwise could be. Now, none of these are really deal breakers, but they would have been easy and cheap to address. And along those lines, the biggest disappointment I have comes down to its price. The speaker itself sells for $70 US, and the optional battery is an extra $15. If you want that subwoofer, you can only get it as a kit with one of the speakers for $150. It's not available separately. And to make that setup portable, you need two batteries. The sub uses the same larger battery as the Eneby speaker, which is also a bit more expensive at $20. After tearing it down, I honestly wonder how much teenage engineering even had to do with this speaker. The part choices and construction, even down to using the same foam tape as on other IKEA branded speakers, well, it really feels to me like everything but the external appearance was left up to the company that actually manufactures these. Now, who exactly that is remains a bit of a mystery, but there are a number of companies in China that specialize in that sort of thing. including Dongguan Kitat, which a viewer named Ryan from Oregon tipped me off as being the manufacturer of IKEA's Symfonisk speakers. And that kind of stuff really is why I'm interested in these to begin with. There are tons of Bluetooth speakers out there. Why care about the ones IKEA sells? It's because this is a completely new product category for them that they have no in-house experience with. They're not some long-time electronics manufacturer with a team of engineers who are experts in building audio products. IKEA is a furniture company, and for all intents and purposes, they shouldn't be selling these at all. So, tearing these speakers down offers an interesting look into the world of contract product manufacturing. IKEA decides what they want the product to do and look like, then has another company behind the scenes engineer and build it for them. And even small decisions that either company makes can have a dramatic impact on cost and the resulting product, like excluding a USB port even though the functionality is already there. Back to Frekvens specifically. With all this in mind, I think for many people, IKEA's Enemy speaker is the better deal. It has a bit better sound quality and can also be portable, but costs $20 less. The only thing you're giving up with it is the flashy color and analog outputs. Now, if you really like its compact size, Frekvens isn't a horrible deal by any means. It is a proper two-way speaker design, and I think it sounds better than a lot of other Bluetooth speakers at the same price. But this could have been a really nice option to build a simple, casual home stereo around. If only stereo was something it could do. If you liked the video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at thisdoesnotcomp. And as always, thanks for watching.